See, a new TV series released on Apple TV Plus, starring Jason Momoa, Sylvia Hex, and Alfred Woodard. It's this dystopian vision of the future where civilization collapsed completely. We don't really know if there was a war or a climate catastrophe or anything else. What we do know is that around 500 years have passed, and there are now only a few million people around the world that survived. And all of those people are blind. Now, because of that, and because the knowledge of what once was has mainly been lost, the communities have regressed to how we would imagine early settlements of hunters and gatherers thousands of years back in the past. The people live in wooden huts, they fish and gather fruit, they hunt to the extent that they can, and they somehow live without sight, with some of them developing abilities like mild precognition, excellent hearing or smell, or the ability to move around silently and undetectably by others. The whole idea of sight as a sense is now considered a heresy, and people suspected of it are burned as witches. And the premise of the series is that in the first episode, the wife of Jason Momoa's character gives birth to twins that can actually see. As it later turns out, Baba Voss, that's Momoa's character, is not the father. That was a person named Jerla Malel, who also could see and who left behind instructions and books for the children to follow when they've grown up. He apparently intended for them to join him, as he wants to basically restart civilization. Now, in the midst of all of this, Jerla Marel and the mother of twins apparently had some sort of connection to another faction of people living in a derelict water dam and led by the quite insane Queen Kane. She wants to do everything in her power to track all those people down and kill them. So the reason I picked up the series was mainly because the trailer looked absolutely insane in terms of sheer production value. And it's not a surprise when you learn about the budget. The rumor is that season 1 and the already confirmed season 2 would have a combined budget of around $250 million. That is absolutely astronomical for a TV series, but when you watch it, you can see where the money went. The cinematography, the locations, the set design, the costumes, the props, it's all just superb, and I think it is the backbone of the series, because the high quality production makes all of this more believable, which is needed with a premise like this. I mean, think about it. Communities of blind people chasing each other around the world, fighting and scavenging. It's just an invitation for plot holes and inconsistencies, and there are many. I think the series does suffer from that problem where if you stop to think about some of the things for a minute, they cease to make sense. But because of how well it's produced, you kind of suspend that disbelief and don't feel the need to overthink stuff. You just roll with it. Other good things about C include Jason Momoa being extremely cool and charismatic and fitting the role as always. Really entertaining action sequences, and particularly the brutal fights, and a couple of really cool world building ideas. But there are problems as well. The first one has to do with that world building, and it's that a lot of those ideas that are introduced ultimately go nowhere or are just created for the sake of one cool scene, and then that's it. My biggest gripe about it was probably the Queen Kane subplot, where a couple of episodes in, it just takes a turn, which essentially invalidates most of what happened before and makes it meaningless. And that's just not good storytelling in general. Second issue is the pacing. I think most of the episodes suffer from the same problem, where in the middle there will be a section of basically nothing happening and it's just characters having conversations, which unfortunately tends to get kind of boring, especially as reminder, most of them are blind, so the acting is also kind of limited. And on the topic of acting, Sylvia Hex, who plays Queen Kane, I think someone should have told her to tone things down a little bit. I think she's overacting a lot, and I couldn't help but think of how Jared Leto played Wallace in Blade Runner 2049. Also blind, also speaking with the same weird cadence, and coincidentally enough, Sylvia Hex was also in that film as his henchman, Love. So I think she took inspiration from Leto, but she took it way too far and comes off as sort of grotesque and unbelievable. Last thing, which is my problem with many TV series and the main reason why I don't watch all that many, is that the first season is not really a finished self-contained story. I mean, look, I'm fine with the ending episode having a tease for what's to come, a sort of final scene, even post-credits that's teasing that there's something left to explore. But that's as long as the main plot of the current season is finished. Whereas in the case of C, the way the last episode ends is just completely open on all fronts. Nothing is resolved, nothing is done. It just feels like we just saw a prolonged prologue to what's to come. And personally, I'd much rather have some sense of closure. In any case, I know I've ragged on for quite a bit, but the reality is that C is quite alright as a series. It's entertaining and it plays around with some fun ideas, even if it wastes a lot of them. Put it this way, if you're expecting a deep story set in this post-apocalyptic society, you're not gonna get one. But if you treat it as light entertainment with terrific production value and some original sets, then by all means, go for it.